Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am just Mike, and you are watching and you are also listening to the fourth episode of the Rock on Wild Show. As you can see from the title, this one is called The Television Shows That Impacted My Life. On episode one, I talked about music. Episode two, I talked about movies. Episode three, I talked about wrestling. I think it's only fitting that on this episode I talk about television, so I have a bit of something for everybody. So if you haven't done so yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share this video with your friends, tell everybody about the Rock on Wild show. Now let's get right into it. When I think of television, I think of the story, the characters, the acting, the actors involved in television. Which ones do I like? Which ones do I don't like? And when I think about television, I think of this is a topic that I can go on and on and on about. In fact, I've actually worked out a list, a really, really long list of shows that influenced my life the most. For this episode, I will turn the camera on and showcase some of the shows that I have with me. Before getting into this, I do want to talk about some of the shows that I tried to watch and stopped watching after a while, just to get these out of the way. I think the greatest example here is Game of Thrones. I've only watched a couple episodes of this show, and I couldn't get into the show after that. It was just a little bit too much for me, into the violence and the sex and all that. I didn't connect with anything, so I just stopped watching. True Blood is another show that I stopped watching after one episode. I just couldn't get into it. The Boys is another show. I watched two episodes of that, couldn't really get into that show at all. Those are just some examples of shows that I just couldn't get into. There's probably a couple more where that came from, but right now, those are the ones that come to my mind. So, with that being said, I have a really, really long list of shows that really influenced my life, have impacted my life the most. And let's dive right into it. Now, when it comes to television, again, this is something that, like wrestling and like music, this really started at a really, really young age. In fact, I remember when I was about maybe 2 or 3 years old, maybe 4 years old for that matter, living in Ontario, I would watch certain shows when I was only a real, real youngster. Sharon, Lois, and Bram was one that really influenced me. Uh, and some of these have a connection within that same time frame. So we got Sharon, Lois, and Bram. Lamb Chop's Play Along is one that I really enjoyed. And two of them are pretty much like shows that have music in it, really. They're all made for kids. They're all made for my age group around that time. Fred Penner was the one that really hit me the most. I love Fred Penner's music, and I love the way he just came across. And of course, you've got the famous shows that I think most kids probably grew up watching. I'm one of them. Sesame Street was a big one for me. The Muppets is a big one for me. And contrary to popular belief, even though it's probably torture for adults, Barney and Friends, Barney the Dinosaur, but Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner Hour, or what I like to call Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show, was one of my favorites as well. Um, Getting into a little bit later on in life, I like shows like Rugrats, Big Comfy Couch, Picky and the Brain, Doug. A lot of those shows from, if you know YTV here in Canada, you'll know the shows that I'm talking about. And iCarly, I started watching a little bit later on in life. It was probably around 2011, 2012 when I would watch iCarly at around uh, 5:30, maybe 6 in the morning before just getting ready for work. Now, when it comes to game shows, there's only very few I watched, and there's one I still watch today, and that's Wheel of Fortune. Every now and then I'll see The Price is Right on, I'll see Jeopardy on. There was one that used to be called Rock and Roll Jeopardy that would air on a channel called Much More Music. I really enjoyed that one because it was right on my alley with the way of music. A Deal or No Deal with Howie Mandel. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this show. It's called Stump the Schwab. It was on the sports channel, and you have to basically stump this guy who's a master of trivia with sports. That's the aim of the game of that show. I thought it was real fun watching that one. When it comes to cooking shows, I didn't watch a lot. I know a lot of people are going to mention Gordon Ramsay, which I understand he's probably the most well-known cooking show out there. But for me, what I grew up watching was The Urban Peasant with James Barber. This guy, it was like watching Cooking for the Soul. When he was cooking, he knows what he's doing, and it just felt like therapy after a while. Watching this guy cook felt like therapy, and it was tremendous. And the funny thing, I would actually try to emulate some of his cooking, and I totally failed. I absolutely totally failed, but his influence to me was absolutely tremendous, and God rest his soul. And I mentioned Much More Musical earlier on, but the predecessor, Much Music, was one of my favorite channels of all time. And the thing that I always loved, looking forward to the most on a Friday night, or a Friday evening for that matter, was the Top 30 Much Music Countdown. I would record these on VHS, and I would go back and watch them every week. And it was just one of those things I just loved looking forward to. Professional wrestling, again, like I was talking about in episode 3, and I don't really need to go any further than that, but WWE, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, all of that came a little bit later on as well. So let's see. So we got all of them out of the way. Star Trek. Now, I know a lot of people will talk about shows like Deep Space Nine and Voyager, the old Star Trek from way back when with Captain Kirk or William Shatner. For me, when it comes to Star Trek, the one show that I grew up the most was Star Trek: The Next Generation with Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, LeVar Burton, Geordi LaForge, Worf, Michael Dorn. I love all those guys. I love all those characters. That was the Star Trek that I loved the most. Boy Meets World. Such an underrated classic, fantastic show at the time. And probably my first crush in television was Topanga. She was my favorite on there. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'm not going to make the joke, but you get what I mean. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I love that show. It was a comedy starring Will Smith. Will Smith at the time, I thought it was cool. So there is that, and I'm not going to go any further. The Adventures of Shirley Holmes, starring Meredith Henderson as Shirley Holmes. One of my favorite shows of all time on the YTV channel. And there's a couple of them from the YTV channel that I didn't mention yet. One of them is Goosebumps, but the scary show that I love the most was Are You Afraid of the Dark? I love watching that show all the time. Now, there was one particular show that I went through a little bit of a phase, and it never really stuck around afterwards, but I watched a lot of these episodes, and it's a show called Murder, She Wrote, and the main character is Jessica Fletcher, played by Angela Lansbury. That show influenced me tremendously because I love the whole murder mystery type of vibe, and Jessica Fletcher would always figure out what's going on, who did it, and I love the show to death. Law and Order became a great big staple, I think, for a number of people who like murder mysteries as well. The Law and Order I love the most was Criminal Intent with Vincent D'Onofrio. That was my favorite Law and Order. And the old Law and Order stuff with Jeremy Orbach and Paul Sorvino and Richard Brooks. I know I'm missing a few, but the old Law and Order I absolutely loved back then, and it's still going on. Law and Order SVU is still going strong 20 odd years later, and I'm absolutely impressed by the longevity of Law and Order SVU. The next few shows are directed by one person, and I'm not going to go into detail about the controversy about the creator, because unless you're living under a rock, you'll know when I list them off. First one I'm going to talk about is a show that is probably my favorite show of all time. In fact, I'm actually going to start my camera up because I got some shows that I'm going to actually showcase for you all. And the first one, to me, this is my favorite show of all time. And I know a lot of people, again, the controversy around the creator, but you'll get why I absolutely love this show. And it's not just about the creator, it's about the characters of this show. It's about the story of this show. It's the lore, the darkness surrounding the world of vampires, demons, and the Slayer. And if you know the direction this is going in, I'm talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is Buffy Season 7, the DVD I have right here. This could be a topic in itself. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is, to me, the quintessential of television, in my opinion. And, of course, I can't forget the spinoff, Angel, starring David Boreanaz. This is the DVD for Season 5, which to me is the best season of Angel. That is a show I highly recommend. And, of course, I can't forget about Dollhouse, a very underrated Joss Whedon show. This is Season 2. There's only 2 seasons of this, and it sucks the show got canceled because I thought this was really good, and Season 2 is definitely the best season of the 2. I actually reviewed Dollhouse on this channel, and there's a good possibility I can make those reviews public again. I just got to find them and make them public, and I'll be glad to showcase them again. And of course, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, I'm about to get into some Marvel stuff here in just a moment, but Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to me was absolutely one of my favorites. So let's see. Oh, another thing that I'm going to put the camera back on again. There's another show that I have, and it's a box set. I have the whole box set here. And it's of, I don't know if you can see that, that's Sam and Dean Winchester, and the show is Supernatural. And I have every single season. Let's go over this for a moment. Seasons 1 to 3. Seasons 4 to 6. And, well, I got seasons 13 to 5. There's definitely one missing here. It's probably at another place, but I have the whole series. And I actually started watching Supernatural. I was actually late to the party because it was already several seasons in. The show was already several seasons in, and I started watching it at around 2012. I started watching it. It was on Netflix, and I just marathoned the heck out of it. So that's that. That was Supernatural. Another show that I marathon throughout is a show called Charmed. In fact, I actually have Charmed, the whole series as well, seasons 1 through 8. So I do have that. I don't have the series here with me. It's in another place, but there's another show I could do a whole topic on a future episode of the Rock Out Wild show, and that is a show about an anti-hero serial killer. I'm talking about Dexter. And when I think of Dexter, I think of those first 4 seasons. To me, that is the best. Those were the best seasons of Dexter. And season 7 is underrated. Season 5 is all right. But yeah, Dexter. Especially the stuff with the Trinity Killer in season 4 and his brother in season 1. Absolutely love that show. It's fantastic. And I alluded to earlier about showcasing Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Here are the Marvel shows that really influenced my liking and keeping me going in the way of television. Not just television, but in Netflix. Because in the world of television, not just Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we had Agent Carter as well, which I thought was underrated. When it comes to those Netflix Marvel shows, Daredevil, The Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, yeah, I know, Iron Fist, The Defenders, Hawkeye, Loki, WandaVision, and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Especially Loki. Those were the shows that really kept me going and kept my love for television. And the opposite of that, DC shows, the CW DC shows like Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, Gotham, a little bit of Supergirl. I know I'm missing a couple, but you get the idea. There was also another show that influenced my liking of television, and it's a show that my dad actually got me into. In fact, here's a little bit of a backstory with this. My dad said he was going around Walmart and seeing this show. It had pretty much almost every DVD there, and he thought, well, maybe I'll pick this up, maybe not, I don't know. He kept going back and back and back. And my dad could tell you the story as well. He just kept looking at the show and thinking, is this any good or what? I don't know. Oh, but look, this show has Ron Perlman. This show has Katie Seagal. And that show is a show about a motorcycle club. And it's called Sons of Anarchy. And after watching the whole series of Sons of Anarchy, I fell in love with this show. It took a while at first because I wasn't sure about who these other characters were, like Jax Teller, Juice, and Chips, and Tiggs. Like I wasn't sure about those characters yet, but once I got used to it, the more I got used to it, the more I fell in love with it. And of course, the spin-off show of Sons of Anarchy, The Mayans. Another underrated show I highly recommend if you love Sons of Anarchy. And the last show I started watching, one I was really late to the party with, but I'm glad I watched this show because this was a show that, before I actually named the show, this was a show where I started watching the first season a few years ago, and then I just stopped watching it for no particular reason. But then somewhere along the way, I think it was last year, around this time last year, Christmas, I thought, what's a show that I stopped watching and I'd probably go into again? So I was looking around Netflix to see what was there. And then I saw it. And I thought, I'm going to pick up the show again. So I did. I watched right from where I left off, first episode of season 2, and I just marathoned the heck out of it. And I thought it even got better somewhere around the middle of season 3, and then season 4 and 5 were the absolute best of that show. That show is Breaking Bad. You goddamn right. And now I'm going to turn my camera on because there's one more show that I'm going to showcase that I haven't got around to watching, but I will watch eventually. As of this recording, December 27th. Now, by then, I'll probably watch a good number of these episodes by the time episode 4 of the Rock on Wild show airs. So, without further ado, the next show I will get into is Smallville. I got this for, whoa, what's that? What the? There's a red dot right there. I think that's a reflection of my camera. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there it is there. Yes, so Smallville. I cannot wait to dive into this as of this recording. Haven't watched it yet, but I will eventually. So, like I said earlier in the introduction of this, the world of television to me is the greatest escape. I love it. I love television. I love it for the stories. I love it for the characters. I love it for the actors. And when I see actors that I know in a television show that's coming up, that will win me over in a heartbeat. And right now, I'm currently watching a show called Dexter Original Sin. As of this recording, there's only like 2 episodes aired, but there's probably going to be more episodes coming down the pipeline by the time this episode of the Rock on Wild show comes out. So I'd say probably maybe a whole season will come out by then. I don't know yet, but we'll see. Other than that, that's my main topic for tonight. 22 minutes in. And now we're going to do On This Day. So I'm going to share screen, present This Day in Music, share. And there's 2 things that really caught my eye here, and here they are. Back in 1999, Jennifer Lopez is the title here. Sean Puff Daddy Combs and his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, were arrested after a gun was found in their car as they left a Manhattan nightclub. I remember that because I lived around this time. Police were investigating a shooting in the club. Yeah. I don't remember the exact result of that, but the controversy surrounding Sean Combs now, yikes. That's all I got to say. Yikes. I'm not getting into that. And in 1997, the Spice Girls, my favorite girl band of the 90s, they went to #1 on the UK singles charts with Too Much. The group set another new world record as their first 6 singles all made #1. Spice Girls, very popular back then. So that is Today in Music, and those were the 2 that I really wanted to get into. Really because it is the 90s. Now let's look at On This Day in film and TV. For this, I'll actually showcase a few of them here. Back in 1927, Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein. It's the second landmark musical Showboat, based on Edna Ferber's novel, opens at the Zingerfield Theater in New York City. Runs for 572 performances. In 1937, Mae West performs Adam and Eve skit that gets her banned from NBC Radio. Controversy. Creates cash. In 1947, first Howdy Doody Show, Puppet Playhouse telecast on NBC. In 1964, first appearance of the Supremes on the Ed Sullivan Write that one down. The Ed Sullivan Show, singing "Come See About Me." Ed Sullivan. And you know what to do with that. In 1974, Dear Abby show ends run on CBS Radio after 11 years. In 1978, CBS television premiere of its version of Les Mis, starring Richard Jordan and Anthony Perkins. In 1979, soap opera Knots Landing premieres on CBS TV. Never even heard of that. And in 1986, second soap opera Digest Awards, Days of Our Lives wins. Days of Our Lives, yeah, that was a soap opera that I probably could have used on my list because that was one I did watch every now and then, Days of Our Lives. And there was another one too, The Young and the Restless. The Young and the Restless were very popular. God damn it, Victoria, I forbid you. I know that's a bad impersonation, but you get what I mean. All right, so let's react to a movie review that I done a long time ago. I am going to react to a movie called Oculus. This is a horror movie. All right, I got the tab open. Perfect. Let's react to this thing. Oh, and just to make sure, yes, I got the right tab open, unlike episode 3, which it was just like these might actually showcase the review here. So let's react to my movie review for a horror movie called Oculus, and we're going to react to this thing in 3, 2, 1, go. I'm meaning an apple. I remember this intro. Before I continue on, funny story, my mom actually thought there was something wrong with me. She thought I was actually choking, which is the idea because I switched the apple to the light bulb, which is something that happened in the movie. No joke.
I couldn't resist. I just had to do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, now I'm going to talk about the movie Oculus. And going into this movie, I was really a skeptic because horror movies to me are not one of the best genres when it comes to movie making. In my personal opinion, next to comedy, because in comedies, the comedy is just way overdone, and sometimes you have unnecessary elements in the comedy. And with horror movies, you tend to have a lot of horror, a lot of blood and guts, a lot of screaming, a lot of camera shaking, all these things.
Jump
But this
scares
movie
too.
never really done that, and I'm really proud of that because I didn't want to see that stereotypical horror movie, where it's like, oh, this happens, okay, this is going to happen here, this is going to happen here. No, it wasn't like that. It was actually unpredictable. And that's the beauty of this movie. And
I don't remember
also,
much of this movie at all.
another interesting element is the mystery, because when they're talking about the mirror in this movie, even though one person talks about the history of the mirror, they never really quite say what caused this mirror to be evil, and I like it because it's mystery, it adds to it, and that's what this movie really made this suspenseful. In this movie were a lot of actually really good actors, some unknown actors, but one actor that really stood out to me was Katie Stackhoff, who to me was a known actor. She's in stuff like Riddick, Battlestar, even Longmire. If you ever watch those.
I forgot she was in
So
this
I
movie.
like that you had to have someone who's actually well known in a movie where you have actors that may be familiar or unfamiliar. One of the main actors, other main actors in this movie was Karen Gillan, who was in Doctor Who, and she played Kaylee. And she was, I thought, really good. And like I said, everyone
For those who don't know who Karen Gillan is, she plays Nebula in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
in this movie was really good in their performances. I like the father in this movie as well. He was really creepy in his role. And this is, to me, Katie Sackhoff's best performance in anything that she's ever been in so far. And the brother that's in the movie, Tim, played by Brenton, I thought he was really good as well. And like I said, the acting department, clearly great. Another thing that I thought was really good was how this movie was directed. For a WWE movie, I didn't expect this to be a good movie going in. And so, with that being said, it was well directed, it was well written, it was well edited as well. And you could see how this movie progressed from beginning to end. Has this weird full circle moment with the brother. I won't spoil it to anyone. And I like how creepy this movie
I'm
was
actually holding on
in the
to the
last
light bulb.
15 minutes of the movie because it wasn't really all that scary to me. There were a couple of jumpy scenes. To me, this movie was a lot more scary. I mean, a lot more interesting than it was scary. So even though I don't think it was one of the best horror movies when it comes to the horror of the movie, it was
Why
a
am I holding on
well
to the light bulb?
developed, well constructed, well done horror movie in an overall perspective. And like I said, it was great, and I love how it played on the whole mind twisting aspects of it as well. You could debate if it's psychological or if it's paranormal, and here come the debates. Here comes the comments on the comment section on this video.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably see these comments on any movie review relating to this movie because it was just one of those movies where you had to pay attention to the story, and if you didn't, you would be like, okay, where are we to now? Where are we to now? Because I like how they went from the scene from the past to the scene in the future without making it really overall confusing. If you're watching it, if you're really paying attention to it. So one
Mm-hmm.
scene you'll have something from what happened from 10 or 11 years ago to where we are now, and then we go back and forth throughout the movie. And I like that they didn't really do it too much to make it really confusing, but they done it enough to make me say, you know what, this was really good. uh, and it didn't feel confusing, even though you could debate what happens throughout the course of the movie if you trying to figure out, okay, what is real here? Is this real? Is this real? Did she really take a bite out of the apple? But if you notice throughout the
I was going to pause this just for a moment. I just the light bulb went off in me when I heard myself say the word real. That's going to be a topic in itself on a future Rock on Wild episode. What is real and how would you define real? So stay tuned for that.
movie, when if you record something, like say if you're using a phone and you're recording something that happened, like debris from this light bulb on the ground, and you record it. And if it picks up on the camera, that means it's real. But if it doesn't pick up on the camera, it's an illusion. And I love how they twist that as well at the end. And the plot points were just absolutely well written, well thought up, even for a WWE studio movie. Like I said,
That's
to
right,
me, this
yeah.
was one of the greatest horror flicks when it comes to how he was portrayed on screen. There wasn't too much horror in it. The only little thing I didn't like was how it kind of slowed down in the first 30 minutes of the movie, but once it hit that 30-minute mark, it just picked right up. It got
It's all
suspenseful,
about the
it
slow
got
build.
intense, it got very
It's all
thrilling,
about the slow build.
and I love the direction that they went to at the end I didn't expect that to happen, and I was like, "Whoa, that was a really good way to go." When it comes to ending a horror movie, I didn't expect that, so it took that predictability factor thrown right off the table. So I really enjoyed this movie, a very well done horror movie, and if I were to give this a rating out of 100, it's an easy 88, and that's saying something for a horror movie. And like I said,
Hmm.
I walked in really skeptic, walked out saying that was really, truly, really amazing. And if you saw this movie, what did you think? Feel free to comment below. And while you're at it, you can click that subscribe button to get Mike McRocked.
McRocked. Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I want to say about that is that I wanted to expand on is that giving him a horror movie in the 2010s, mainly. I'm not talking about any other decade here. I'm mainly just talking about horror movies in the 2010s. Giving a horror movie 80 points, yeah, that definitely meant something for me. So I'm going to stop the camera because I'm not reacting to anything anymore. In fact, I'm about to end the Rock on Wild Show episode 4, and I'm going to end it with a quote. And this quote is this: "The time is always right to do what is right. There is nothing short um, There is nothing of such force as the power of a person content merely to be himself. Nothing so invincible as the power of simple honesty. Nothing so successful as the life of one who runs alone." That is so true, and that quote is from Martin Luther King Jr. Take care of yourself, be well, everyone stay safe, and on a final note to all of you watching, get plenty of rest, and always do your best.